quantitative easing. Essentially, what the Fed does is they say, hey, JP Morgan, and that was the example that I used, I'm going to credit you a deposit on my ledger, and I'm going to take this bond from you or one of your clients. In the example I used, BlackRock. BlackRock sells a bond to the Fed. The Fed uses JP Morgan as an intermediary, and now JP Morgan has a corresponding deposit at the Fed. BlackRock now has a corresponding deposit at JP Morgan. And the question is, what does BlackRock do with this new money?
In this recent interview with Tom Bilyeu, featuring Arthur Hayes, we explore 3 hot topics shaping Bitcoin's future: the prediction of a $1 million Bitcoin due to macroeconomic shifts, the potential impact of Trump-era fiscal policies on cryptocurrency adoption, and why institutional adoption could make Bitcoin the ultimate inflation hedge. At the time of this discussion, Bitcoin is trading around $97,000, reflecting a 4% decrease in the last 24 hours and a 2% decrease in the last 30 days. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Now, let's hear more from Arthur Hayes.
Yeah, so essentially, US is going to copy the Chinese model, which is state-sanctioned either cheap credit through the banking system or tax credits or direct subsidies. So Trump needs to make it economically feasible for an American, a European, or even a Chinese manufacturer to say, okay, instead of building my factory in China, Vietnam, Mexico, whatever, I can build it here in America. And this good is going to be price competitive with anything globally because I'm getting these massive government tax breaks or subsidies, or I'm getting extremely cheap credit. And so I wrote an essay about this, and I went through how the money moves to the banking system to basically show that what Trump was going to do was allow the U.S. commercial banks to issue credit, which is essentially creates money. And they'll do this because it's profitable, because companies have this implicit government backstop of subsidies, tax breaks, even tariff protection. So it's exactly the same thing that Japan and China did to elevate their economies post-World War II. And so if you take a look at the amount of money that is needed just to reduce sort of the American debt to GDP down, I think I forecast something 7 or 80% from the 130 that is today. I estimate it could be in the magnitude of 10 trillion. Obviously, I don't know the exact number, but that's the direction of travel. If you think about the amount of implicit credit that needs to be created, that needs to be given to American owned factories in America to do the things that Trump wants them to do, which is make goods in America, decouple the supply chains from China. So the first thing people need to understand is that the price on the screen is the marginal price of the last trade. It's not every trade that's happened. And so it's the simple example is, how do you become a trillionaire? Well, you create some fictitious company with 1 trillion shares, and then you sell one of them to your friend for $1. Now you're a trillionaire, right? The marginal price is $1 on 1 trillion shares, therefore you're a trillionaire. So I'm not saying that there needs to be, $1 million traded every day at that Bitcoin price. I can see $1 to trade at $1 million, and that's $1 million Bitcoin. And that informs our psychological perspective on what we think Bitcoin is worth. So with that in mind, what I'm talking about is the marginal flows into Bitcoin. Well, the supply of Bitcoin is fixed. We know 21 million will ever be produced. However, as you have people like BlackRock, Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy, longtime holders like myself and others, people who are just getting into the game now and believe in a future path of Bitcoin over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, are they going to sell? Why would you sell Bitcoin for fiat currency if you implicitly believe that the US government and every other major government is going to increase the amount of that fiat currency ad infinitum? That's the reason why you got into Bitcoin. So as the price rises, there's less people who want to sell it. And if we have this institutional adoption through the ETFs and other sort of corporate finance vehicles, those are sticky forms of holding, which take supply out of the market, which means it's very easy to have a very exponential rise in the marginal price of Bitcoin, the last traded price of Bitcoin. And so I think that's one facet of just how a microstructure of a market works when you have a fixed supply and a holding base that doesn't want to sell it against an asset that can be infinitely debased. And then the other side, you have the United States trying to reshore industry, issuing credit. You have China has a property bust and they want to protect their industry, and they're starting down the path of quantitative easing. They just recently announced that they're okay with allowing their currency to depreciate because they believe it's going to help them in their fight against the new Trump 2.0 tariffs. You have the European Union statesmen like Mario Draghi and Emmanuel Macron openly saying that we need to print more money to revitalize the European industrial base. And you have Japan, which continues to run the easiest monetary policy of any major developed nation. So if you take a look at the entire world in terms of the largest four countries and economic blocks, they all are printing money for various different reasons. That's only going to continue. It's accelerating, in fact. And so we have a diminishing supply of freely traded Bitcoin with an expanding supply of fiat currency looking for a home. And if we believe that more people are changing their mindset to say, okay, crypto, it survived 15 years. It's going to be here for another 15, 20, 100 years, whatever. I feel okay thinking that this is going to be a store of value. I can use it to pay for things when I need. Therefore, I'm going to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 10% of my retirement income or savings and now start buying this asset. And so all these things come together, and that's what creates a marginal price of $1 million per Bitcoin. Well, I think the economist who made it's a Gresham's law. You spend bad money, you hoard good money, right? So what's the bad money? The bad money is fiat currency, US dollar, euro, yen, Chinese yuan. What's the good money? Bitcoin, gold to some extent. And so what are people doing? They're spending the fiat, they're saving, they're hoarding the Bitcoin, the gold, right? And so I think that's called Gresham's law. Could be mistaken on that. So yeah, you could put it in a physics term. You can put it in sort of an economics term. You can take a look at what happened in sort of like Weimar, Germany during their hyperinflation during the 1930s in terms of people got their marks. They spent them as quickly as possible, but they were also hoarding gold because they knew that was a real money at that time. So we're seeing the similar sort of thing just starting today. And yeah, Saylor can put it in sort of a physics terms, but I think in sort of a social cultural norm, we've seen this before every time any major civilization has failed. And they always print money, they always debase the currency, whether you're in a gold standard or not. It's the same thing over and over again. If you read enough history, it looks the same, it feels the same.
As we just heard Arthur Hayes explain his bold prediction of a $1 million Bitcoin, he dives into the possible effects of global monetary policies and institutional adoption. Now, let's hear him discuss why volatility is Bitcoin's biggest strength and how it can shape the future of digital currencies. Now let's listen to what Arthur Hayes has to say.
So at the end of the day, what is life? Life is risk, right? Every moment that we exist in this universe, I wouldn't go so far to say this, but some people say the universe is trying to kill you, right? You enter this world, you have no clothes.
All lose.
Yeah, right. And so at the end of the day, we're trying to make these calculations all the time about how do I structure my life so that I can survive longer in this universe. And so at the end of the day, I want to have a strip of bets that where the upside, when I'm right, is greater than what I pay to take that bet intrinsically. So our life is a strip of options. And so the more volatile the situation, the more valuable the option. But the name of the game is how do I pay the least amount of premium as possible in life so that I make decisions where my, getting it right pays me more and sort of, feel good things versus what it costs me to take that bet. So we live in a volatile universe. Volatility is our friend. Suppressing volatility is not natural. And so government says, hey, through my ability to have legalized violence and kill people because they don't follow my rules, I'm going to protect you. And so let me smooth out that life curve for you. Do what I say is essentially the name of the game for any type of government. And there is some benefit to that, but take it to the extreme, which is what central banks have done over the past 50 years or whatever it is, then you start to get into this unnatural state where the volatility is so low relative to what the natural just ebbs and flows of life in this universe are, and then things just blow up, right? And so you think you're safe, and then you get a 2008 housing crisis, or you get, the European crisis in 2011, or you get the regional banking crisis in the US in 2023. And these are all symptomatic of governments saying, we're just going to print a bunch of money and suppress volatility. But volatility is natural. We want volatility. We want to construct a situation where we have volatile upside outcomes with capped downside. And that's really the goal. And so that's what, Bitcoin and crypto really represents, is there's this outcome where all the fiat money in the world needs to come into Bitcoin. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but you can think of that as sort of the extreme example. And your cost is the price that you pay today for Bitcoin. So some people paid $1 for Bitcoin back in 2010, and if they held on, now it's worth 104,000, right? But the most it could ever lose was $1. And so why wouldn't you take that bet? You know how much you're going to lose. It's the amount of fiat currency that you sold to buy Bitcoin. And so you can sort of self-select your risk profile based on your own situation. But there's always an amount of money that you can willing to lose to earn the 10,000, 100,000, $1 million X return on something like Bitcoin.
To watch the full interview, check out the link in the description. We'd love to hear your thoughts on some questions. What role do you think institutional investors will play in Bitcoin's future? Could Bitcoin's volatility be its biggest strength or its Achilles heel? Thank you for tuning into Only the Savvy. If you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe, like, and share our video for more engaging content focused on the innovative world of decentralized technologies. SIM swap fraud is sweeping the globe, and your mobile security is at risk. Switch to Ifani and lock out SIM swap fraud and get the most elite mobile protection in the world. Ifani guarantees 100% protection from SIM swaps, backed by a $5 million insurance policy. Stay secure with reliable coverage, free international roaming, and unlimited data. Trust Ifani to keep your communications and assets secure. Get military-grade protection, 24/7 concierge service, and a hassle-free upgrade. Click the link below for $150 off. Thanks for watching. Help support this channel and receive exclusive offers from one of our partners located in the description. We'll see you on the next one.